Today I have a very exciting video because I'm going to be talking all about Salt New York's collab with Hannah Louise Poston. I have the medium and deeper palettes to swatch and try on, and I am going to include a wear test as well. I did receive this in PR. I have received a few things earlier in this year from Salt New York as well. And I have known about and followed Hannah on YouTube for such a long time, well before I even started creating content in 2021. Hannah has really been someone that from the beginning of her journey, I've really enjoyed listening to her videos. I love the way she describes things, the way that she really puts herself out there. And so, of course, with all of that in mind, I do have some inherent bias. That being said, I'm really going to try to dig in and provide some feedback on these palettes, both from the standpoint of somebody who has medium deep skin tone and as somebody who has some similar preferences to Hannah, but also some very different preferences as well. I am definitely known for being a full pigment girly through and through, but I love brown blushes and I love cream products, so I'm very excited to dig in. Also, I really love all of these small details. The mood board, the aesthetics, all just really sets the vibe. And before I forget, I do have a discount code with Salt, so I'm gonna go ahead and pop it up on the screen now. All right, let's do some swatches. I'm gonna show you what these are like in real time, because I do think that will tell you something about this formula as well. Right now, I'm swatching the medium palette. You can see that it's a very gently pigmented formula, but it is buildable. These are basically firm feeling balms, and they kind of activate in the pan as they come into contact with the warmth of your fingertips. I am glad that I got both the medium and the deeper palettes, because initially I was just going to get the medium palette. We were allowed to kind of pick which products we wanted to receive. And I'm glad that I chose the deeper palette too, just for my own makeup preferences. And something that I noticed when I was swatching the palette is that even though the depth of the blushes in this palette are in the same family, there's a lot of nuance when it comes to the undertones. Very excited about these highlighters on a day-to-day basis. I definitely love a cream highlighter that doesn't have sparkle. Here's what the medium blush palette looks like swatched on my arm. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and dip into this medium palette. I'm gonna start off with the shade Orchid, which I think is the lightest of all of the shades in the medium palette. And I am someone who generally prefers to put on cream blush with my fingertips, so I'm gonna apply it the exact same way that I apply my other cream blushes. I will say that right off the bat, I can tell you that it's definitely a lot more gently pigmented than other formulas that I am familiar with, but that's true for a lot of the formulas that I've tried from Salt New York. They're very much a buildable formula. So you're not gonna get a good idea of what it looks like until you apply it and build it on the skin to your preference. So this is what the shade Orchid is looking like. Honestly, I feel like this shade might be a little bit light for me. It is the lightest in the medium palette. If I'm going for a very kind of subtle wash, then I think that this would provide it, but I think that that is pretty close to my skin tone, but you'll have to let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, and then on the other side, I'm gonna go in with the shade Oyster Fig, which is the second deepest brown shade in the palette. And yeah, I think this is, you can tell even on the first application, that it is a little bit deeper. Yeah, this would be my subtle everyday blush. I think that first shade was just a little bit close to my skin tone. And here is what we're looking like with the shade Oyster Fig. built up. Now we're gonna go ahead and get into the highlighter. I do think that this highlighter is one that I'm gonna get on well with. I love highlighters that don't have sparkle for everyday life. Actually made a whole video on it, just like I made a video on brown blushes. But this is just gonna give a really pretty sheen to the skin. Oh yeah. Really love this style of just kind of wet glow highlighter, or no sparkle highlight. And here's what we're looking like with Cbeautymall, the highlight shade in that medium palette, applied to both cheeks. Now what I really want to do is to use the deepest shade in this palette as a lip. I actually haven't tried any of the Salt New York cheek products on the lips, but I am going to come back and do a wear test with everything in the deeper palette. Okay, built up. I think this is a really beautiful grungy brown lip, and it feels texture-wise like a lip balm, like a very lightweight lip balm is the way I would describe it. Okay, before I go ahead and try on all the blushes in the deep palette, I'm gonna do some swatches. Same thing that I did for the medium palette, we're gonna do them real time because these are deeper and they show up more on my skin tone. I don't have to build them up quite as much. I will talk about which shades I think are most optimal for me at the end of the video. But again, you can see that even though the depth of these shades is similar, there are some definite nuances in undertones. Super excited to dig into this deeper palette though, and ooh, look at this highlighter. Y'all already know how much I love highlighters, so of course I was so pleased that we got 3 in this collection. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and dive into this deeper palette, and this is the palette that I'm also gonna do a wear test with. So we're gonna start off with this shade Tenmoku, and I'm just gonna go ahead and do the exact same thing. I do tend to like a somewhat pigmented blush, but this is building nicely. And I think that, you know, if I could have picked one palette for me and my skin tone and my preferences, I think it would have been the deep palette. Just the deep palette. Here is what Tenmoku is looking like fully applied. All right, now we're gonna go in to the shade Corduroy, and I'm gonna put it on the other side, just building it up a little bit. And here is what the shade Corduroy is looking like, and Tenmoku on the other side. The deepest shade in the deep palette is Cantor, so I'm gonna go ahead and actually probably apply it to both cheeks and just see how much depth I can get with it. I'm gonna go ahead and apply it to the other cheek. Here's what both cheeks look like fully blushed, and this is before I'm gonna go in with the highlighter. I am excited about this highlighter shade. Now, if this was a super pigmented highlighter, it might be a little bit too deep on me, but I don't think that's gonna be the case here because these shades are definitely very buildable. And for these highlighters especially, I would say that is a really good thing. It makes them very versatile. Oh yeah. I love these highlighters. These may be my favorite part of the collection, honestly. Here's what the shade Vivian looks like fully applied. And here is what it looks like on both cheeks. Honestly, I'm really enjoying how this look came together. I wasn't sure if this blush formula was going to be too desaturated for me, and I know that's totally what Hannah was going for, but I actually really do like this end result. And I think I'm going to go ahead and be a little bit gluttonous and put the highlighter on my inner corners and brow bone as well. I'm curious. I mean, since I'm doing a wear test, we're gonna go ahead and go all in. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it on the brow bone and inner corner on both sides and just show you also what that looks like. But yeah, really like that. I like a dewy skin, so you know, this is definitely giving me the type of effect I really enjoy. It reminds me a little bit of the Haus Labs highlight balm and blush balm finish a little bit. And then I am going to go ahead and take that deepest shade Cantor in this palette and use it again as a lip product. I was surprised how much I enjoyed the feeling of these on the lips. I do find that in general I don't really like to use the same products on the lips and the cheeks. But these, I think I actually really am gonna use these on both the lips and the cheeks. And I'm curious how well it's gonna wear on the lips. It just feels so light. I love that. All right, here is the shade Cantor. All right, and here's what everything is looking like fully applied. I did go ahead and add a setting spray just so I can do a little bit of a wear test here. And I am gonna do a check-in in probably about 5 to maybe 6 hours, and we'll see how everything wore. I've had the Deep palette on for about 6 hours now. So a decent wear test, not the longest, but not the shortest. So I just wanted to close up with some wrap-up thoughts. One is, you can still see the products. I feel like these products are wearing well. I didn't do anything special other than setting spray. I didn't use powder to set my face. That's not usually in my daily routine. If I do, it's very kind of focused and typically not in the areas where I wear blush. So I do think that they are wearing really nicely. I asked my husband if he could see my blush and my highlighter, and of course I don't think that he's the best judge of makeup. There's times when he doesn't really notice what I'm wearing at all, but he did notice, so I thought that was significant because, you know, I do think that this is a more subtle blush, and definitely more subtle than, you know, I tend to go for, but I gotta say, I really like the way that my skin looks, and I genuinely do think that I'm going to be using and reaching for these quite a bit. Now, in terms of the shades that I think are best suited for me, I have a medium deep skin tone. I think that, you know, yes, I did receive the medium palette and the deep palette in PR, but I think that if I would go back and choose a couple of pieces that I think are best suited for me, it's from the deep palette in terms of the blushes. I really love Cantor, and I think I would have gotten maybe one other shade. And I love the highlighters, and these highlighters are quite a bit different. So I think, you know, for me, it wouldn't have been redundant to have both. And I'm actually really curious about the highlighter in the light palette as well. I feel like I would enjoy that too. I really love highlighter. I really like highlighter that doesn't have sparkle, and I love cream blushes. I feel like in a lot of my other videos where I've reviewed blushes and tried on blushes, and my favorites, cream blushes are where it's at for me. I definitely feel like I have to play around with this formula a little bit more. I'm still relatively new to Salt New York. I think in general, you know, yes, I do tend to go for things that are a little bit more pigmented, but as I said, I really like the way that my skin looks. I do feel like this could be, you know, a formula that I go for on a day-to-day basis, whether it's, you know, going to the office, but I also feel like just for day-to-day life as well. I am keen to play around with this more and see where it ends up, you know, in the rest of my collection. I do wonder if the reason why I gravitate more toward the blushes in the deeper palette has to do with my makeup preferences. I think that may be part of it, but I also do think the shades in here are best suited for me over the medium palette in general. The other thing I want to mention is that I quite like using these on the lips. Again, I have to play around with it a little bit more and see specifically what the wear time is like on these, but I feel like in terms of the texture, it feels nice. It feels light, like I'm not wearing anything on my lips. I'm not, you know, really aware of it. And I think the shades in here are quite pretty as lip products as well. All right, now that we've had a chance to go through everything, I really hope you found this video helpful. I'd love to hear in the comments which pieces of the collection you're most interested in, which shades you're gravitating towards the most, and if you're planning on picking anything up from this collection. I want to say huge congratulations to Hannah and Salt New York on a beautiful curation and just all the thoughts and details that went into this. Clearly, you know, very passionate labor of love. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.